All right, so that's all I had for me talking part, and I'd like to spend the rest of the time doing Q&A. So if you've got a question, either type it in the chat window, or you could raise your hand if you can figure out how to do that. And we'll address your questions. Doesn't look like we have any on chat so far.
I have not seen any chat questions, Paul.
Okay, I see one here from Syed. Where do the default values for SAM come from? So default values, so when you open a SAM case, here let's start fresh, and I'll start a new project. Let's say it's a parabolic trough project. There are default values. We've got a default location, default parameters for the solar field, collectors. We've got default costs. And the reason we do it this way is A, because there are a lot of inputs, and we don't want to make you have to come up with values for all of the inputs just to get started. And then that's why we have default values in there. And the values we've chosen, we've tried to have them be reasonable values for sort of representative systems in the US. And if you're interested in finding out more about where we get the data for the default values, you can go to the SAM website on the Resources tab, go to System Cost Data, and this is where we have listed the documents from which we drew values for the defaults. So some of the defaults come from analysis that the U.S. Department of Energy does for its sort of internal planning. Some of the so that's for things like system size and configuration. And then costs come from analyses done at the lab and within the lab system on sort of general market trends. So the costs generally represent what's happening in the market at the time of a SAM software release. But again, these are just starting points and don't represent NREL or the Department of Energy's or anyone else's sort of official take on what the status of a certain technology is or what the costs are in the marketplace. Can P50, P90 analysis be made with Solar Prospector TM2 data set? Yes, technically yes. If you go to the Solar Prospector website, or you can actually do it from SAM. So if I go, I'm in Portland, Oregon. That's not where I do it. I'm sure you guys do this all the time. If you want to download data from the internet, don't type your address there. Go down here to download a weather file from Solar Prospector. And then I can download single year data from 98 to 2009. So you could download these files one by one via SAM, or you can just go to the Solar Prospector website and get the data there. But that data sample, it's only, what is it, 10 years? It's not really big enough for a meaningful P50, P90 analysis. But you could run it in SAM. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember what the lower limit is on the number of files for P50, P90 in the new version. Do you happen to know, Janine?
Yes, it's 10 files, Paul.
10 files. So you should be able to run a P50, P90 analysis with the Solar Prospector data, even though technically it's not enough files to give you a really meaningful number. I noticed that you're running Sam 215.121. Yep, that's because I'm a special guy. I get to run the most current version. So this version, I actually just compiled it today, and it has all the best and latest updates. So this is an internal test version that's not yet available for the public, but we're working hard to get this update finished, and it will be ready by the end of the month. And I used this internal version because I didn't want to run into some of the issues that we're aware of with the current release. Could you show an example of multiple simulations for a PV system showing different financial solutions? Gil, I'm going to unmute you if you don't mind. Could you elaborate a little bit on your question?
Sure. Just wondering if I was trying to understand how you're doing different simulations, and like for a PV developer, we look at like some of the choices that you have, like how much debt you're going to roll, and I guess instead of looking at, I was just trying to understand how to do that, and wonder if you could walk through it step by step.
Okay, I can briefly try to demonstrate how you might do that. So let's say I'll use the PV watts model because it's simpler, so you basically go through and in the most basic initial analysis, let's say we're modeling a system in Portland, and I'm just going to use the built-in Portland weather data, and then you would put in, let's say I'm going to change I chose the single owner financial model. I'm going to do a rooftop system instead. So I'll change the model to residential. And you just put in your cost inputs. So whatever data you have available for starters, let's say that I've done a little research and I know I can get modules for 60 cents a watt. And that's as much as I know now. I'm just getting started. If I don't have any information about financial assumptions, then maybe I'll just go with the defaults. And maybe I'll start with no incentives just to get a sense of what the cost would be without incentives. And then run a simulation. And start looking at some of my initial results, and then typically what you do is then you just start going back and forth looking at your results and adjusting costs to see, let's say this is saying that I get a payback period of 13 years. So maybe I'll go and say, well, what happens if I lower my module cost to something that's maybe unrealistic, just to see what happens. That changed my payback period to 10 years, so that's telling me the module cost is pretty important. So generally, that's sort of the process. I'm not sure if that exactly answers your question, but it's a little off topic, but I figured I'd give you a little demo anyway. Let's move on to Michael Draper. Could you revisit stochastic analysis, and in what instances it makes sense to use this feature? I sort of want to stay away from the sort of more theoretical questions here. Basically, if there's in some situations particularly in cost analysis, if you're trying to start to look at risk, for example, or really trying to nail down what costs in your, you've got all these cost assumptions, in SAM, you've got all these cost inputs, and in a real project, you have even more detail in your costs, and a lot of the costs are uncertain. So you can use stochastic analysis to kind of get a sense of which of your costs are the ones that your project metrics are going to be most sensitive to, and then that kind of helps you know which costs to focus on really getting good data for example. So that might be an application of a stochastic analysis. I don't know, Janine, do you or anybody else over there have anything you want to add about that?
No, I don't think so, Paul.
Okay. Amadou, for system cost data, is there a way to update the prices at our convenience? If yes, how? Yes, all the system costs here are all inputs, and so you can change them to whatever you want. And in fact, you should. So when you run SAM, you should go through and look at the costs and the financial assumptions and change them to whatever is appropriate for your analysis. And that's going to be different in different parts of the U.S. and different in different countries as well. Can you use nonlinear functions to correlate two variables or running stochastic analysis? We didn't look at the correlations, and to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how the correlations work. So let's table that question, and if you could ask that question on the SAM support forum.
Paul?
Yes, go ahead.
I'll just jump in here. I was taking a look at that when I saw the question. When you select a host of input variables, that then allows those variables to show up in the list for the correlations.
Right.
And it appears that we only have linear correlations available at this time.
Great. Right. Okay, thank you, Janine. Amadou, you can contact us about training materials and so on. Would be happy to help you with your efforts to teach SAM. SAM is being used in a lot of universities, so you can either email the SAM support email address at sam.support@nral.gov or post a question on the support forum, and we would be happy to help you. And then, Godfred, I see your hand is raised. I'll unmute you in case you have a question.
Yes, I did a project using SAM for CSP plant. I was looking at the size of the plant in relation to the area, land area, rather than the other parameters the system was giving me. So I did select a commercial as a financial model. So I was trying to model it in, for instance, if I have, say, 200 acres of land, what amount of power would the system be able to give me?
Right. So the land area is not an input in any of SAM's solar models. So for any photovoltaic or CSP, any large-scale solar project, and any rooftop one for that matter, the amount of space you have available for the array or for the solar field is a constraint.
Oh, okay.
But unfortunately, and that's in the real world. But unfortunately, SAM does not allow you to constrain the system size based on land area. So what you have to do is sort of design your system in SAM and see how much area you have to do your land area calculations essentially outside of SAM.
Oh, okay.
Now, that said, you can, if you look on the system cost page, we do have these land-related costs.
Mm-hmm.
But these are just a way you can calculate land costs to ensure that your land costs are included in your financial analysis.
Okay.
And SAM is going to estimate the land cost based on either the solar field size, or you can estimate the land cost as a % of the direct cost up here, or you can specify the land cost as a cost per capacity, or just as a fixed cost. So we give you various ways to account for the cost of the land in your financial analysis, but SAM cannot constrain your system design based on available land.
Oh, okay. Yep. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Let's see, another one from Syed. I am pretty new to this software. Can you please show how it is possible to add weather data for a city such as Boston? Okay. So I don't think I want to put a parabolic trough system in Boston. So let me create a new case. And let's say we're going to put a commercial, we're going to put a PV system on a commercial building in Boston. So I choose the photovoltaic model, commercial, and then on the location and resource page, you've got 3 options for choosing a weather file. One is to choose a file from SAM's weather library. So these are weather files from the National Solar Radiation Database, which is a database that's managed by NREL. And if we go to Boston, there is a weather file for Boston, which is at the airport. So you could use that. That's one option. So you would just choose that and then simulate. Or if we go back to the location resource page, you could download a weather file from the NREL Solar Prospector. And this is a online database also managed by NREL, but the data for this database comes from a different source than this data. So to use that data, the Solar Prospector data, you click download, and then you can put in your actual address. So I don't know any addresses in Boston, so I'll just type the city name. Or I'll just, yeah. So you can just, it can be a city name, it can be a street address, or it can be a latitude and longitude if you know the coordinates. And then for most analysis, you want to use the TMY data, and then click OK. And SAM does a bunch of stuff. Hopefully not including crashing. This is not looking very promising. When you download a weather file from the Solar Prospector, SAM refreshes the library. And the library is a very large collection of files. And it can take a while for SAM to scan through all those files and refresh. It creates a temporary file with some summary data from that collection of weather files. So that's what it does when it's doing all that thinking. So it didn't crash, and it looks like we have a file named Boston Math TMY CSV, and it's got added automatically to the library. So there it is. And if I want to see what the data in the file looks like, I can click View Hourly Data and plot the data there. And then I can run a simulation. Okay, any other questions? Syed, I will unmute you. It looks like your hand is raised.
Yes, can you get me? Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much for that. That's very helpful. But just to follow up on that, what we to upload onto the software a list of GPS coordinates?
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. Your voice is very quiet.
Oh, is it better this way?
Much better, yes.
Okay, sorry. No, I would say thank you for that. And just as a follow-up to my previous question, is it possible to upload to the software a list of GPS coordinates?
Sorry, is it possible to upload?
To the software a list of GPS coordinate, latitude and longitude, just to so that I can have it in the library and also different location in Massachusetts, for instance, or different states like Vermont.
I'm still having trouble hearing you. Do you mean is it possible to download a weather file based on the latitude and longitude?
I'm just gonna write it. It's probably gonna be easier.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have just another minute or so. I'll stay online as long as there are questions. I think Syed was going to type his question. There it comes. So is it possible to upload GPS coordinates for several locations? Not at the moment. The licensing agreement that we have to use the solar prospector data doesn't allow automatic downloading for multiple locations. So even though technically we have the tools that would make that possible, we can't make that available through SAM at the moment. And David Hagan, I just unmuted you.
Thank you. Can you hear me here?
Yes, go ahead.
Query, any plans for non-electrical use for water or thermochemical? Or how to model thermochemical use?
What's the energy source?
Solar, either PV or thermal. I'm saying, how do we get connected to projects other than electricity, or do we just have to take results and export them?
Yeah, for now, SAM is an electric generation model. It's primarily designed to model large-scale power generation projects and then smaller distributed power projects. The exception is the solar water heating model, which is limited in that it can only be modeled as a thermal project that displaces electricity. I mean, the problem is that SAM, as it's currently designed, the financial metrics are all based on electricity production. We do have plans for potentially adding thermal applications to the CSP models. So that may happen, but in general, the primary focus of SAM is on electricity generation. It is possible to work around that by setting up the SAM inputs for, say, a CSP project in such a way that the power, for example, you can just oversize the power cycle and then use the thermal output of the solar field as an input into a model outside of SAM to model the thermal process. So, and that has been done, but
can you briefly run through how to do that?
There's actually some discussion on the support forum on that. There's some detailed discussion. So if you go to the support forum and search for thermal process, you should find the discussions. If you don't find it, just post a question there, and I can point you in the right direction.
Okay. And how about storage? How is that being dealt with?
You mean electric storage batteries?
Or thermal storage?
Thermal storage, the CSP models include thermal storage models where it's appropriate. So the parabolic trough and the power tower have models for a large 2-tank storage system.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go explore further.
You're welcome. Okay, I think we'll take one more question here. It looks like Amadou, you're unmuted. Go ahead, please. It looks like your line may be muted on your end. For battery storage, sorry, go ahead, Amadou.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, well, the question I have is most of the time the question we have in Africa is because the grid is not really a good grid, is a really old-fashioned grid, though to inject power from a PPA program can be sometimes difficult. So some of the question came out all the time is to find out if we put in place a power plant, a solar power plant, for example, we need a battery backup for that power plant. So in the sense of system cost and in the sense of the PPA business plan, it would be difficult to elaborate. There's a way with some, what I'm trying to say, there's a way with some to consider that storage option of the power plant program for the PPA. During the day the PPA will work. At night they want us to put a battery backup system to be able to. There's a way with some to quantify that backup at night to sell the power at night. And in my option, what I did is to have a price at night and a price during the day. During the day where we have just a power straight out from the power plant, and during the night when we have a power straight out from the storage. So with SAM, there's any way to integrate all that in the business plan?
And are you talking about a CSP project?
No, I'm talking about a solar project.
PV.
PV, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So currently SAM's PV model does not have an electric storage option. We're working on that now and should be ready by the summer. But the bigger question about the financial modeling of a situation where you have an unstable grid or unreliable grid is that there may be some ways to force that to work, but SAM is not really designed to handle that situation. I think you may end up having to run a simulation in SAM and then take your hourly results out of SAM and do some manipulation out of SAM. There's also other software that does that a little bit better, that's more designed for off-grid and microgrid in those kind of situations. Like Homer is an example that I can think of. So at the moment you can't model that at all in SAM because there's no storage model. After the summer, there may be some ways to start getting at that question, but SAM isn't designed to specifically answer those sorts of questions.
Quick before you left is to ask about who I need to contact for the teaching material, because I really would like to teach SAM here in Africa.
You can contact me and just contact me either via the support forum or email at sam.support@nrel.gov.
Sam.support.
Yeah, I will put that in the chat window.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll stay online a little bit longer here. There's some more questions about weather data. For weather data, if you go to the SAM website and resources. Under resources, go to weather data. There's a table there of some resources that we know of. So that's a good starting point. And this page has a lot of information about weather data in SAM. So that's what I would recommend. The URL is there. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap this up. Most of these questions, it's been good to have this discussion, I think. They weren't all relevant to the topic at hand, but it's good that folks have a lot of questions. So I would suggest for the remaining questions that we did not answer to please post them on the SAM support forum. Sorry here. Go to support here. We monitor this daily and hourly. You can search the forum for questions and post your own. And you can also contact us using the contact form on the SAM website. So with that, I think I will sign off. Thank you all very much for your active participation. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar and to hearing from you on the support forum.